Oh, sorry, there's 4 more. I miscounted in my head. So more of the same. So these are all 4 regularly shaped lots. You can see that they all have narrow approaches to the homes. Or the parcel at 857, you can see that it doesn't have a very wide approach to that home. That lot 861, they also are requesting a street side yard setback reduction of 2 feet. So that would allow them to actually place homes on this lot because that lot ended up being a little bit too narrow in order to get enough clearance for fire trucks to get that cul-de-sac. They have to get a little bit of a side yard setback on this one as well. So next slide, please. So that was a lot of information on the lots, but the quick background here is that City Council adopted this specific plan back in 2003. 2004, they approved the Marina Heights Community Design Guidelines. These design guidelines set the standards for the specific plan, and then the implementation was they adopted the MHR Marina Heights, which is now known as Sea Haven, residential district zoning. And then in July of this year, June and July of this year, we discovered that some of the lots had difficulties in phase 4 and that there would be this request for a variance would be needing for phase 4. It hasn't been needed in the past because phase 3 is a little more square than phase 4. And so because of the shape, the odd shapes that have come out of phase 4, these variances are now needed. Next slide, please. So this is straight out of the zoning ordinance for the MHR district. It's just highlighting that there's a maximum front yard setback for the single family homes and cottages, and also the street side yard for that one single family home. Next slide, please. So any variance, there's required findings. These are in the staff report as well as the required findings. I'm not going to read this necessarily, but these are required for any variance within California. So next slide, please. When I looked at these lots with the developer, we looked at each of those different lots, special circumstances. It's all explained in the staff report. I've already kind of gone over all this when we looked at each of the lots, but irregularly shaped and then really long, those really long alley loaded lots. All this when we looked at create that predicament. So without modifying these variances, they wouldn't be able to develop these lots, and these are part of the 1,050 units that are part of the Sea Haven development. So granting these setback variances is both consistent with the specific plan and the community design guidelines, which I spoke about briefly earlier. The only thing we're really doing is just adjusting it for the zoning that was the implementation of those 2 documents. So, and then next slide, please. So here's the recommendation on the screen, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. And we have Andy Hunter, who's their project engineer for Wathen Castanos and Truemark. And he's here if you have any questions, specific questions for him, he can answer the nitty gritty details. So.
Thanks, Nick. Can you do me a favor, pull the slides back up? I'm just curious. I have a question just on the actual drawing itself. Maybe it can be one of the first 2 drawings. Mm-hmm. And then while I'm
the one with the lots.
Nope, go down.
Yeah.
That's fine. Right here's works. Can you put it in like presentation mode?
Sure.
Because it'll be easier. That works right there. Cool. So I'm just curious, the internal dash line around on the inside of each property line.
Yeah. So if you see the ones that are not highlighted in yellow, the ones on the right, like 785, 784, 783, those ones have one color line. Those are a style choice. So those are already determined that those are going to be either Spanish, Monterey style, Craftsman. There's the 4 or 5 styles in Sea Haven. So the reason why you're seeing multiple colors is because Andy's gone and looked at these sites and said, okay, these sites, they're able to place these three styles or this one style only fits here. And so that's why for a couple of these, there's only one color, and then that like 796, there's all four colors, it looks like, and then 792, there's two or three colors.
So it's basically that they've just overlaid the different floor plans.
Right, and that way they know, they can tell the sales team like these three or these four will actually fit on this lot.
That's what I figured. I
Yeah.
just wanted to confirm that I wasn't misinterpreting that it's just a layering issue.
Yeah, thank you I forgot to clarify that. I appreciate it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Doesn't really change the discussion here much.
Yeah.
It was more just my information. Any comments that you would like to make as the applicant tonight? Pretty straightforward. Okay. Open up to the commissioners. Any comments? Questions?
My question was already just answered.
See, usually I wait till and let you all go first. And I preempted it today and I got the one question that was being asked. I got it. All right. Guido, I'm going to open it up to no questions from the commissioners, nothing from the applicant. I'm assuming there is nothing online from anybody who would like to speak. I'll open it to the public or anybody who's online.
I don't believe so, but we'll wait a couple seconds just if somebody wants to digitally raise their hand. I don't see anybody, Chair Woodson.
All right, so we'll take a. It's like I feel like I'm on Jeopardy, but the short version, without the money.
Yeah, so no one has raised their hand.
Okay.
So
Would somebody like to
I feel like
make
I'm
a
on Jeopardy,
motion?
but
the short. on
I'd
this?
be happy to make the motion. Guido, could you
Yes.
put it up for me?
sure.
I move to adopt Planning Commission Resolution number 24-18, approving variance V 24-0002 to allow modified setbacks for 15 irregular shaped lots numbers 295, 742, 762, 792 to 794, 796, 806, 832, 853 to 855, 857, 861, and 862 in Sea Havens Phase 4A and 4B. The variance is subject to findings, conditions, and find that the proposed amendments are exempt from SEQA per sections 15305 and 15060B3.
So I have a question. I want to make a friendly amendment just for clarification on this. And this, as I was reading it, I didn't catch it when I first looked over this. 853, 854, 855, it's literally one property between the two. Same thing with 792 to 794. I would like to make a friendly amendment to change the word "to" between 792 and 794 to read 793. And the same with 853 to 855 and change the word "to" to 854. I know it's very simple, but I want to, that way, anybody ever comes back down the road and says, hey, it wasn't my lot. We've specifically defined it.
Sounds good.
Is
The
that
maker of the motion has to accept the amendment. So
Commissioner Dickerson? Do you accept that?
I accept that amendment
Okay.
to the movement.
Okay. That all said, I believe we still have friendly amendment was approved. The second was approved. We can go ahead and take a vote on this.
Commissioner Barron. Yes. Commissioner Rana,
Yes.
Chair Woodson,
Yes.
Commissioner St. John,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right. Before you leave, I have a comment that I want to make. It's more of a procedural question, operational question. Nick, when you discussed this up front, one of the first things you said was, hey, there are a couple of these lot lines over off of Abrams that they're already looking to build and they're just waiting for our variance tonight to start building. Thinking ahead to phase 5, if we have issues that like this are going to come up in phase 5, because you already have the basic lot lines already laid out. If you bring it to us before, then we're not actually waiting. Not that it's a big deal because you'll catch up, but just to kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah, I offered it to them when we talked about this and they said they'll wait on phase 5.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, it just,
Just a little
I
bit too
mean,
much.
you've still got a lot of building to do on phase 4. I totally get it. But as we get into, as you're finishing up phase 4 and you're starting to prep work for phase 5, you're going to come back to us and you're going to brief us phase 5 anyway and what the plan is going to be. At the time we could do, if we have the variances, we could just add the variances into that initial briefing and just get it done. Okay. That's all I've got there. Now it's time for your competitor.
I don't see. Oh, Brad.
Brad's on there.
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thought my camera was on. I don't know why that's just showing up as my
Okay.
picture, but that's all right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Brad Evanson with Regional Government Services. I'm here to present variance 24-0003, a request to have a retaining wall series along lots 661 through 669 of Dunes Phase 3. Retaining walls that would be exceeding the maximum height permitted under the Marina Municipal Code. And with that, if I can share the screen, I'll go ahead and start my presentation. I don't see that I have the option to share screen. Guido, can you hook me up?
You have privileges to share your screen, Brad.
Huh. I'm not sure. There we go. Oh, there we go. All right. Okay, now I'll share screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so again, this is a retaining wall variance V 24-0003 for retaining wall height variance for the dunes in phase 3 at the corner, southeast corner of First Street and 6th Avenue. And there we go. So the project location right there at, again, southeast corner of 6th and 1st. And it is, you can see my cursor right here. It's right there above the lateral twin streets. And on May 31st, 2005, the council adopted the University Villages specific plan, which is now the Dunes on Monterey Bay. September 3, 2021, Marina Community Partners submitted the revised phase 3 tentative map application, and a conceptual rendering for the subject location anticipated that retaining walls would not be needed for this location because there was at that time ample space to provide room to manage the topography between the building pad heights and the street elevation. But on July 13th, Marina Community Partners submitted additional documentation regarding preserving trees originally designated for removal. In that correspondence, MCP noted that preservation of trees at the future intersection of 1st and 6th would require construction of retaining walls to accommodate the topography of the site. This due to the space needed to establish a tree protection zone around the drip line of the tree to protect it during construction. On July 19th, 2024, MCP submitted a variance application to construct retaining wall fence combos along the rear yards of lots 661 through 669 that exceed the maximum height allowed by the Marina Municipal Code. And got that in there twice. So there you can see those are the lots that are expected to have. You can see that on both of those images. Per the Marina Municipal Code, section 1742-060E, rear yard fences combined with retaining walls can have a maximum combined height of 9 feet, with the retaining wall portion not exceeding a maximum of 3 feet in height above grade. The combined fence and retaining wall development along the backs of these lots range from 13.3 feet total at the rear of lot 661 down to 7.3 feet at lot 669. And while some of these lots would not exceed the combined maximum of 9 feet height, all of the subject lots require retaining wall sections that exceed the maximum height of 3 feet, ranging from nearly 11 feet at lot 661 to just over 4 feet at lot 669. So the variance is required along the entire stretch of that block of lots. And here is For those of you that understand engineering drawings, I personally don't that well, but as you can see, here are the lots at the top. The top image is the plan view of the lots, showing the rear yard setback to where the wall would go, and how the cut in with the right of way to preserve the trees here, particularly behind lot 661, and then down along here behind 664, 665. You can see that there are areas where it is established that earthwork needs to be preserved to protect the trees. The lower image is a cross-section view of what the wall heights would be compared to the grades of the building pads on the lots and the street grade. Again, it's very engineering oriented, and I can't claim to be an engineer, so I can't really explain what that means, but it is possible that someone from Marina Community Partners may be on tonight that can offer a little bit of insight into that. These are the typical wall sections. Obviously, these are not, we do not have precise drawings submitted with this package for each wall, but this is the conceptual of for the typical walls that exceed a combined 10 feet and higher on the image on the left, and then the walls that do not exceed 10 feet on the right. So you just kind of get a sense of where the decorative view wall fence at the top of the wall would be versus the retaining wall, the materials that go into it, and that sort of issue. As was noted with the previous agenda item, the required variance findings are established in Marina Municipal Code 17.060 or 17.60.030 A and B. Variances may only be granted in a narrow set of circumstances, which the applicant has demonstrated as the following: that because of special circumstances applicable to the subject property, including size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings, the strict application of the municipal code is found to deprive the subject property of privileges enjoyed by other properties in the vicinity and under identical zone classifications, and that grant of a variance permit would not constitute a grant of special privilege inconsistent with the limitations upon other properties in the vicinity and zone in which subject property is located. The analysis on this, the special circumstances are the preservation of the trees that were originally identified for removal after the subdivision layout was established. The lateral space needed to establish the tree protection zones does not leave sufficient space to construct compliant retaining walls to manage the topography, specifically the grade separation between the specified lots and First Avenue. Granting the wall height variance listed above is consistent with the intent of Marina zoning ordinance and would not constitute a grant of special privileges inconsistent with limitations on other properties in the vicinity. And the recommendation is to move to adopt Planning Commission Resolution number 24-19, approving variance V 24-0003 to allow for the construction of combined fence retaining walls in the rear yards of lots 661 through 669 of Phase 3 North of the Dunes on Monterey Bay. The variance is subject to findings, conditions, and find that the proposed amendments are exempt from CEQA per section 15303E. And I'm available if you have questions.
Thanks a lot, Brad. Nick or Guido, do you have anything else you wanted to add to that? Right, I'll open it up to the commission for questions. I have a few, but I'll save them to after yours.
I will let me stop.
Anybody have any questions? Nobody has any questions. Wow, this is. All right, let me ask my questions first, and we'll come back to comment. So actually, is anybody online? Anybody online have any questions?
1 second, I'm dealing with a technical issue.
Okay, so I'll ask my questions while Guido's dealing with the technical issue. Brad, a couple ones, and need some more just clarifications for me.
Sure.
The actual retaining wall material, is it going to be block or is it going to be poured concrete?
It is going to be CMU block.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is as we if we're facing if we're on First Avenue and we're facing the development,
Yes.
and so you've got the lowest set of walls on the right and the highest set of walls around 13 feet on the left as you get towards 6th. what I'm thinking about, 11 to 13 feet is a pretty size, even with block vertical, is going to be a pretty sizable big piece of masonry that's just going to be sitting there. I mean, no matter how we do it. And that's going to be facing wise, we still have the intentions, I believe, from Mayor Delgado and the city council, that the buildings across the street are still eventually going to be the art center, maybe at some point in history. Plus we have all the other new development around there. And so what I'm getting to is, if we looked at that and created a way that we could actually paint or do murals like we have done in some of the other areas of the Shea property, or on the promenade, and then around town at a bigger level across the entire city of Marina. I'm trying to figure out, how do we break up an 11 to 13 foot wall so that it actually is a little more presentable over time, because that is going to be a gateway kind of walk path, because and I'm going to make assumptions here, without getting into approval or disapprovals. If the MST bus station goes in there, if we have the new arts center that's going into where the old Discom warehouses are, with the new promenade sitting there, we've got people will be coming into the bus station, then walking up towards the promenade, and it's just a big piece of wall. And so I can't tell you do one way or the other, but it was just something that I would kind of leave out there. Is there a way that we can do something so that we could put commission some type of mural artwork to be done in that area? And I'll leave that for you to think about. As part of it, it obviously doesn't change how we look and vote, but it's just like a thought of mine, because I'm picturing this in my head. I'm like looking in this room. I mean, this room's from floor to ceiling is 13 feet, and it's just a big visual distraction. The second thing I have, and if Nick, if you could, or Guido, whoever pulled up the slide deck, if you could go back, I think one slide
Sure.
on this. Oh, that's right. Brad, you're running it.
Yeah.
And join as panelists. So underneath this, and I just want to make sure I understand it right. The current plan is for almost looks like street parking in between the trees. So the curb line, instead of having a straight curb line all the way down, we're going to have cut-ins for parking spaces.
I honestly don't recall off the top of my head if there was sufficient space for park. I believe there was.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it looks like on the drawing.
Yeah.
Is that there's going to be space for doing that. Again, it's not going to affect the decision making, but I'm just looking at assuming that these are more advanced 60 or 70% drawings at this point. It just looks like that. If you could just follow up, I'm curious down the road again, what that's going to look like on First Avenue.
Sure.
Those were, and then my third question is going back to the trees themselves and make sure I understand it correctly. Part of the reason that we're doing the request for variance also is because the trees are not at the correct elevation based on where the site layout is for the development. As a result of that, one of the things that you're going to be doing is running drainage or running irrigation to those trees.
I believe that is correct, that irrigation will be along the sidewalk frontage. I would have to defer to Public Works on what their expectations are out of this, but yeah, my expectation is that irrigation would be run to those trees, and they are at street level. I'm not sure how the utility layout is in there, where the feed would come from specifically.
But we have Andy Hunter, the city,
good.
record engineer of record for this type, but he's in the audience. So
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Good evening, Andy Hunter. I'm with Whitson Engineers. To clarify your question here, yes, there will be irrigation along that strip. That is a future homeowners association owned parcel that has a slope in part of it and trees in the other. And so yes, it will be planted and irrigated.
Okay. And that's, the reason I raise that is that they're low irrigation. They don't have a large need for water. That's actually, I'm looking at it from the opposite perspective. if we start irrigating it, those trees are going to grow. I'm literally running into that in my front yard where once I put the concrete in, I changed everything, it changed the sloping of my yard. So now the dew that we get on the fog creates enough of a runoff some days that it's the trees that were there when I moved in. You can see the growth that they're happening. And so my concern there is just that making sure that because these are covered by the HOA, that we're not actually that we actually are creating a management issue that the HOA is going to be able to manage. And I think this maybe goes to my bigger one across all the trees that we've saved, is that we effectively we're all passing this off on the HOA eventually to maintain all these trees that have been saved. And we want to make sure that we identify the right management procedures for these trees specifically, in addition to any of the other street trees and everything else that's being provided in the landscaping. I think that was kind of my bigger concern there. Those were mine, because they weren't really questions, they're more just comments to think about. Then I think Commissioner St. John, you had a comment?
Yeah, my comment was that if the city had not requested after the fact that these 2 or 3 trees remain not taken out, but remain in place, that forced the developer and his engineer to relook at the grading and slopes, and that it would be detrimental to the health of the trees if at that point you did not introduce a retaining wall system in this section. Is that correct? That it's, if the city hadn't requested these trees not be demolished, we wouldn't be here tonight?
That's right. It would be designed as a steep slope, and yeah, with, minimal walls along that edge.
So it still might have had some retaining walls, but they wouldn't be these 10-foot nominal monsters.
Right. That's what I would anticipate. Yes.
Okay. So we kind of brought this on ourselves to save the trees, which is a noble thing. But, right.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think this is where we're at.
Okay.
Anybody else have a comment they wanted to add? All right, again, I think this is a pretty straightforward variance request that we have. I don't see any issues with it. Does anybody want to make a motion? Nick, you could put the motion.
I'll make a motion.
Brad, do you want to show your recommendation slides in
Oh,
the
yeah.
commission?
Sure. Yeah, let me get there. There we go.
Okay, I move to adopt Planning Commission Resolution number 24-19, approving variance V 24-0003 to allow for the construction of a combined fence retaining walls in the rear yards of lots 661 through 669 of Phase 3, north of the dunes on Monterey Bay. The variance is subject to findings, conditions, and find that the proposed amendments are exempt from CEQA per section 15303E.
We have a second to the motion. A second. Commissioner Chang seconds. Do we have any amendments or any other issues? Okay, go ahead and take a vote, please.
Commissioner Barron, Commissioner Rana,
Yes.
Chair Whitson,
Yes.
Commissioner St. John,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Takes care of the two main items on the agenda. I believe next is information briefings tonight. Rito.
Yeah, the last item on the agenda is just to announce to the commission, and if there's any members of the public out there, we did finally get our pre-approved ADU plans approved through our plan check firm. They're all drawn up. If you live in Sea Haven and Dunes, we're still working through the water issues there, so you would not be able to use those, but every other part of Marina. If you choose the exact, we have 3 base styles for basically a 1-bedroom, a studio, and a 2-bedroom. And then there's 3 different variations of those. So we have a total of about 9 pre-approved ADU plans. If you don't change the plans and you pay your sewer and water and school fees, you can get your permit within a matter of days. And so that'll really help us boost up our ADU numbers. When I started in 2021, we only had approved 8 ADUs that year. And Alec Barton, if you guys recall, did a lot of great work. He worked to get us 23. So we're really trying to boost up those numbers even more. For this RENA cycle, we're looking to approve about 88 ADUs for the next 8 years. But with these pre-approved plans, we'll probably be able to far exceed that number. And so if your neighbors or your friends or anybody wants to do an ADU, we have a very, very streamlined process. So welcome and glad to take any questions. So.
No, thank you. I've looked at it. So I do have a question on, you and I were talking about this offline a little bit, the Sea Haven and Dunes. So I understand the water issues that are there. Right now, my understanding is overall, they can't use the streamline, but really right now, they can't do ADUs at all at the moment, correct? Because
For now, that is correct. We're working through those issues with the water district, so.
Okay. And then once, if and when the water district approves that, at that point, they would fall underneath the same general ADU requirements that the rest of the city has, which then meet all the state requirements and
Right.
things that
Some
override.
of the units might be a little bit big for some of those properties, but we'll have to address that when we get there, so.
Okay. We know a couple of variances in Sea Haven that have lots of room, or in Sea Haven have lots of room now. There's one that could probably put in 2. Okay, great. Next up, staff and project updates.
No project updates at this time.
Okay. Okay, next up, correspondence.
None.
I hate to do this. I mean, we might have to carry this on for at least 3 minutes to get to 45 minutes today.
Chair Woodson, before you adjourn, so next meeting is September 12th. If at all possible, it's a really important meeting. As you're aware, the city's been working on the downtown plan for a number of years. I'm picking up the last 2.5 of it. We're bringing the downtown plan to the commission September 12th.
I'm gonna be out of town. How disappointed am I?
You can call into the meeting if you have,
I may do that.
if you have, we can talk offline if it's a justifiable use of the just cause provisions.
Okay.
But we really, really need all the commissioners there. I'm trying to get to council by October 15th, but I need to get the commission to bless it on September 12th.
This is how we were going to get to 12/7/15.
Mhm.
That being kind of laid out, are there any issues relating to public notice to the public and especially the affected areas downtown to remind them that the meeting is on the 12th and that we would like them to show up and plus, minus, or indifferent provide their comments to the meeting? Are we doing anything to kind of help get the?
Yes,
what are we
to answer your question, yes, I've done quite a bit of research and extensive outreach on the project. So.
Okay. Well, I hope that the people who have lots of questions and are raising it in different forums actually show up and provide comments, because that's the only way that we're actually going to make progress and get this moving forward and
Okay.
finalized. Okay, enough of my commentary on that. If there's nothing else, since Commissioner Jacobson's already looking at his phone because he's already moved on. He's like, that's it,
No, I'm
done."
making sure I have the meeting on my
Just
calendar.
kidding. Oh my gosh. So defensive. So, all right, we'll go ahead and adjourn today's